Good morning, preppers, and happy Monday. This is Perrin Lovett, and this is Prepper Post News from Freedom Prepper, Monday, November the 9th, 2020. And yes, folks, if you remember from Friday, I went off and I learned all about Paperclips, both the very small and the large. You can do all kind of things with those. Those Paperclip people really know how to party. I'm glad that is over. So we've got a couple of things to cover. Over the weekend, there was not a whole lot of movement in the election mess. I've got a couple of stories about that, a couple other things. Back in the mobile studio, and I've been told to kind of move to one side so we can get graphics up here. I'm learning. Pepe Escobar had a short column at Unrest. This was, I guess, Saturday. I'm not sure whether it's a satire piece or whether he knows something, but just imagine this election, red versus blue. What if it was all a big game, a big simulation played out in the real world? I'll just put a link up to that. Everything will be linked as usual at freedomprepper.com, and I believe down below in the description of the video. There have been a couple of developments. If you listen to the mainstream media, you're probably not going to hear about it, or you're going to have it dismissed out of hand as a hoax. We had a comment on one of the videos last week about, how do we know this? How do we know that? What's going to happen? And I think I answered that, well, we don't know anything yet, and that's why we're probably going to go to court, possibly the Supreme Court, and this may involve the various state legislatures in places like Georgia, maybe North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and a few others of the necessary critical states, enough of which just happen to be controlled by the Republican Party. So I'm still sticking with my prediction that it's a Trump victory, although we shall see. But there is, and I mentioned in my reply to the comment that, think of him what you will. Trump is different. He's not your run-of-the-mill Republican. I said that Mitt Romney would have already conceded and been planning another big socialist program. And I read somewhere, I'm not going to link to it, that Romney, is congratulating President Biden, telling Trump to lay off and get out of the White House. And he's saying that all this allegation of election fraud in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, et cetera, is baseless. And yet and still, Trump fights on. And there is mounting evidence all over the place that, in addition to having mail-in ballots dumped at the last second or hours after the count is supposed to be complete, we have electronic problems. In Michigan, election officials, here's your proof. This is not hearsay from some bystander who may or may not be interested in a Trump win. Election officials from counties are coming, like 40 counties are coming out and saying, we count all these electronic, Soros touchscreen votes with a computer program. And, it made a glitch, just a minor problem. Just, I think 7,000 votes for Trump went to Biden. And that's the pattern, that's statistically impossible. If you have glitchy votes or after the fact votes, how come every single one of them is weighted for one candidate and none for the other? I think there is going to be, in 2000, Al Gore had the election results tied up until about Christmas, and that was his right to do so. We could be Christmas or even in January before we get the certification of the votes is what counts, and that's how you could involve the state houses in addition to the courts. Steve Bannon, of all people, mentioned that. I'm going to put a link up to his War Room Gab account, and it's a pretty short video clip of him. He's under indictment right now, awaiting trial, and you'd never know it by looking at him. Like, he has not a care in the world. Of course, he's a Trump guy, worked for Trump. His position is Trump won. That's the end of the story, and we'll get all this sorted out, and here's how. And he also called for putting some heads on pikes. I may put that link up. You've probably heard about that. Speaking rhetorically, I'm sure the man means no one any harm. Oh, and speaking of rhetoric meeting the dialectic, I just earlier on my way back from the Paperclip convention, I listened to Pastor Chuck Baldwin's sermon from, was it last week? From November 1st, 2 Sundays ago now. And it was a pre-election sermon about, I'm going to put a link to it, at Liberty Fellowship Church in Montana, a sermon about modern, practical, debased politics in America versus the biblical requirements of any leader, including a president. And, we find it's not all Romans 13. Any government isn't good and just unless it follows the commandments laid out in books like 2 Samuel or Exodus. Rulers have to be just, and they have to rule under God. You're not ruling 300 million slaves or dumb animals or robots. You've got to look at your citizens as people who are your equal, who you're just trying to do the best thing for. And we have not had that in the longest time. And if this modern electronic fraud is real, and I think it probably is, I never like the touch screens. I don't trust them. I know people down in Palm Beach are kind of weak, and not you, but the rest of them are kind of weak and dumb, and it's really hard to push a pen through a piece of paper. But I like that system better. We've departed quite a bit, and you're not even, they don't even think of you as a slave. You're just a number. And now with the electronic manipulation, I don't have the story right here, but apparently this computer program can be algorithmically rigged to just do whatever it wants to, regardless of who votes for what. And who really is going to know, barring a full inspection, which is what we're going to get. Where was I going with that? Rambling on. But they don't even need your vote now. They can just say, well, yeah, 150 million people showed up and they all voted for candidate X, so he's in, and good luck. This is an interesting story at the state level. Oklahoma. I'll just put the link up. Oklahoma, congratulations. You're not just a musical. You're a first. This will have you running to the dictionary, to Info Galactic, even Wikipedia for this one. What does non-binary mean outside of a statistical sense, mathematically speaking, about people? Well, anyway, we might suspect what it could portend for America. Moving on. The election also was kind of a national referendum that's been ongoing about illicit drug use in the country. And I'd like to give the libertarians a hand. You have achieved, and I'm not picking on you, by the way. When I first started with the Freedom Prepper, I said, who are these people? And Scott said, well, they're Christians, conservatives, and libertarians. And great set of principles, but it always seemed to me like the party, the big LP, was always at the end of the day pushing marijuana. Well, you've got that. And now it appears that the people are tired of the failed drug war, and that's a good thing. I think I read one time that the same number of people use the same drugs today as they did in the 1920s before any of this was made illegal. Nothing has changed. What I would caution from kind of an esoteric standpoint that I can approach, because I'm going to do it, we need to look at why so many people want to get zonked out. Why is life in America so bad that you've got to get high? And I'm not talking about people who have a drink of wine or smoke the joint, but people who destroy their lives, and who really facilitates that. Sackler family. Why? Why do we put up with that? And I hope we can reach a point under Trump, under Biden, individually, where we can address things like that, because that's what really matters as human beings. But good on you, America. A little bit of freedom here and there. Just couple it with some responsibility. We've got another war spreading. This is from Real Clear Investigations. I'll link it up. And I've had other things about this concerning education. There's a war now against meritocracy in everything, especially in the schools. And the craziest arguments imaginable are being raised about. We got some sort of parade over here, impromptu parade. Look at that. I'm sure they would agree with me, all of those good folks, that if you have an elite middle school or high school, whether it's government run or private, parochial, whatever, some people, there needs to be some testing, because if everybody comes in, it will cease to be elite. I'll put that up, and there's a lot. Education is one of my pet subjects. I even wrote a novel about it. But John Taylor Gatto wrote a book called Dumbing Us Down, and they've done that, and now it's almost like they want to finish us off. We could go on for another 6 hours about that, but take a look at the link, because it's spreading. Just like the radiation from the meltdown at Fukushima. It's almost 10 years now since we had the earthquake, the tsunami, the backup generators flooded, the core melted down, and you've got years and years of radioactive contamination to deal with. And TEPCO, the company that screwed everything up to begin with, just got permission from the Japanese government, and they dumped out over 1 million tons of contaminated water. Now, what's it contaminated with? This is a global research story. I don't know. I would assume with plutonium, which has a lethality period of like 10,000 years. And 1 million tons, I think that's like 250 million gallons, like 400 Olympic swimming pools. Now, going into the Pacific Ocean, that gets diluted. It's a drop in the bucket, or a drop in the ocean. But it spreads. The currents will carry it to the east towards us in America. And all these environmentalists, all the climate change people, all the pandemic people, no one is talking about this. It's a real problem. It was easily preventable. That lowest bidder, got to save a buck philosophy, with the generators down right by the ocean in an area known for 50-foot waves. Just take a look at that, and then compare it to a nuclear plant near you. This one is huge. I'm starting to run a little long. Hopefully I can, when I really figure out what I'm doing, speed these things up. Trying to look at the camera. I get all the little, I understand the hints. This one is huge. Everybody is going to these Ring doorbells. It's not a doorbell. It's a camera. It looks in. Sometimes they're tied into systems that are inside the house. They watch everything. The police in Jackson, Mississippi, of all places, have an Orwellian spy program for your own protection. I guess that was at Hines County. For your own good, they want to spy on your Ring camera, because everybody's getting them now. And you will be given, through your service provider, the option to opt in or opt out. And I trust them completely, just like I trust those electronic voting machines. If you opt out, you're out. There's no way they can go in and just, watch all the time. Does this help solve crimes? Yes, it does. I'm aware of many cases where people have been caught red-handed, from anything from stealing FedEx packages to murder with these cameras. But how much surveillance do we really need? I mean, take a look at that. That's from Vice. Moving right along here, I've got some health stories to round this out. I just saw this from Sky News, thought I'd put it in. It's kind of a statistical medley or a mismatch of stories, but Teenagers with poor diets are up to 20 centimeters shorter than kids with good diets. You know, here's another thing. Don't because an expert says it doesn't mean it's true. I got to be careful with this symbolism. But remember the food pyramid back in the 70s, back in, you know, my time. You know, eat a lot of bread. You know, bread is good for you. It doesn't turn to fat, you know, and, you know, at the very top, you know, a little bit of meat, you know, a little bit of vegetables, sugar, and bread. Yeah. So we don't know what they're defining as a good diet, but kids that get it are taller, healthier, which kind of makes sense. And lastly, I'm not trying to offer you coffee like Freedom Roasters coffee, the best coffee in the world. But I keep finding these stories about the health benefits of coffee. And apparently there's a right number. If you drink 4 cups of coffee a day, your brain runs at optimal power. They don't define what a cup is. I think this homemade job is 12 ounces. You know, a lot of hotels and nice restaurants, it's like a 4-ounce cup or a 6-ounce cup. And I think that's what the coffee makers are incrementally designed for. You know, my go-to cup is, I think, 16 or 20 ounces. And when it comes to coffee, yeah, I could drink 4 of those. But it wakes you up too much. Too much of anything is a bad thing. But take a look at that. It's actually from the Ladders. Years ago, I signed up with the Ladders, you know, for that good six-figure job that never panned out, mainly because I didn't use it. Not much of a tech person. Odd here, right? But the coffee is great. I don't know if we can, for copyright, can link to this. I can put a link to it if I can remember. Dilbert, Wally is always on coffee, and lately, the end of last week, Wally was on the medical grade coffee, and he's in the doctor's office, and he says, "Hey doc, I drink so much coffee, I'm immune to it now. I have a tolerance. Is there medical grade coffee?" And the doctor says, "Well, yes, but there are horrible side effects." And Wally's already got his sleeve rolls up. He's like, "Get it in my veins." Coffee, the best stuff on earth. And I can turn the camera off remotely now, so I'm going to go ahead and leave you with that cheery thought. Friends, thanks for all the comments, all the likes, and such on YouTube. We're going to keep growing this thing. Hopefully one day, before too long, I'm going to have a real studio. I know nothing about that, except I have a backdrop that you're going to love, and it's better than anything anybody has. Steve Bannon doesn't have it. Rush Limbaugh doesn't have it. Don Lemon certainly doesn't have it. It's not on Fox News. You're going to really like. It's going to provide a wonderful place to project these images that Yvonne is so gracious and talented at providing. Folks, have a great Monday, and maybe by tomorrow we'll have this election sorted out. Yeah, have a good one.